What up? What up? It's your boy Josh here. First episode of the Law and Hip Hop Show. So this is where we're gonna bring hip hop culture together with the law. None of the pump faking, none of the uh, culture vultures who are out here trying to do what they do to make fun of the culture and make a couple dollars. We're here, whole purpose why, to bring exposure to black lawyers and to bring information to black people, people for the culture, people who really want to be able to learn about what's going on and how the law impacts them um, in a way that fits them. So, my name's Josh Jones, also known as the Dope Black Lawyer. So, if So let's get into it. So right now, type in live if you're watching live, and if you're watching the replay, go ahead and type replay in as well, and let us know where you're watching from. Rep your city, rep your HBCU, rep your church. Tell us who your pastor is, whatever it is that you want to let us know. Go ahead and do that in the comments. So I don't want to hold you too long. What would a show about hip hop and the law be without Kanye West? So we're gonna kick it off with Kanye, always in the news. This time it's kind of light. So if you've been following, then you know that Kanye West had gone to his daughter's basketball game, and when he was coming out, he was he was watching a fan who was taking pictures of him. He didn't want the fan to take the pictures, and he got into a verbal confrontation, and he ended up throwing the fan's phone. So, um, so the phone broke, but it was only about $30 worth of damage. The fan decided not to press charges, and you know what can you say? It's Kanye, right? So there's really no lesson to be learned because there's nobody else in the world like Kanye who acts like Kanye. But obviously we know we can't go out here and just be throwing people's phones. That's a little bit silly, a little bit ridiculous. For those of you who kind of care, he's been chilling with his new wife. I just found out he had a new wife apparently, and she kind of looks like his old wife. So it's not too much to even really talk about or know there. So um, also in the news, kind of more serious because it could have had some crazy ramifications for this black man. Michael Irvin, former Dallas Cowboy, former Miami Hurricane, and currently he works for the NFL Network. While at work, he was um, accused of being aggressive and drunk while interacting with a white woman in a Marriott. So the Marriott kind of put out a statement. The woman was trying to make it seem a certain way, and Michael Irvin has vehemently said that he did not do the things that he was accused of all this time. And finally, he's had a lawyer. They filed a lawsuit, and they filed a lawsuit over in Texas when the incident happened in Phoenix, and they dropped the one in Texas and moved it to Arizona, and were able to get the videotape released to the public. The Marriott did not want the video released to the public because the video doesn't show what they say it shows. So let's see if I can cue up the video so we could kind of get a sense. So we could get a sense of what happened. So I'm going to cue that up for us right now. And you should be able to see the screen. It's a picture of another television where they're showing the video. So right here, you see Michael Irvin interacting with the employee. Now, Marriott said he was visibly drunk and aggressive. So I'm watching the video. So far, I haven't seen him stumble. I haven't seen him lose his balance. I haven't seen him do anything that would appear to be aggressive. But they're saying that he did something that was inappropriate with this white woman in the Marriott. So far, nothing. There are people walking around. Nobody seems to be alarmed at all. So let's just keep watching to see if anything aggressive happens. Okay, he did touch her, but it didn't seem aggressive. It didn't seem like it was anything more than like when you're interacting with someone normal. Well, there's no sound. We don't know. But based on what I see, again, It just looks like two people having a conversation in a hotel. Um, it looks like they are shaking hands. If someone did something aggressive to me or was flirting with me and I didn't like it, I think I would not still be standing there. A couple people are walking up and they part ways. She doesn't seem to be too upset, but we know that being aggressive is a code word, and it can be a dangerous word that can get a lot of people hurt and possibly killed. So, luckily, in this instance, Michael Irvin has this video. Um, a jury may get a chance to see the video, and the jury can make a determination for themselves as to if they believe him or if they believe the Marriott and the woman. Um, so, one key thing that happened in this case that we kind of talked about briefly is making sure that you file your lawsuit in the right place. So Michael Irvin lives in Texas, but this incident happened in Arizona. So most of the time when you file a lawsuit, you have to file the lawsuit where the incident happened. That'll be the primary place where a lawsuit would be filed, um, is where the incident happened. You can sometimes do it in other places, but the place where you most likely won't be able to do it is where you're from if you're from a different state, just because it's more convenient for you. That's not the way that it works. So you have to go to where the incident happened, where the most connection to it is, maybe where the defendant is at. They'll allow that, but they moved it from Texas, and it's $100 million. They're saying it's $100 million claim. We'll see what happens. We'll see if he ends up getting anything, and we'll stay tuned on the story as it progresses. Another story, another football story. So if you're a football fan, which I used to be, not as much anymore, ever since everything shook out with Kaepernick, and we got a chance to kind of see how the NFL really operates on a bigger scale, and a lot of the stuff with the TBIs, with the brain injuries, didn't sit too good with me. So I don't watch it as much as I used to. But there is a brother from University of Georgia. He was one of the top players, defensive lineman, and back in January, not too long after their team won the national championship, there was a player and a trainer who were killed in an accident. It was determined that the driver of that vehicle was under the influence of alcohol, almost 3 times the legal limit. And this player, Jalen Carter, he said that he was not there, and it was kind of proven that he was. So he ended up the day before the combine a couple of weeks ago, turned himself in, and yesterday he finally went ahead and was sentenced. He pled no contest, so he's not going to proceed with the case. But he was sentenced to 1 year probation, 80 hours of community service, and a $1,000 fine, which he should be able to pay. But he certainly did cost himself some money in the draft. He was probably going to be like a top 5, top 10 pick, apparently. Defensive tackle, really good player. And, anytime you have any type of character blemishes, they're going to try to penalize you for that. So it's probable that he's going to take a pay cut in the draft that's coming up next month. But, he's still going to be a rich guy. So it's a touchy situation. Obviously, he lost some people in an incident, and he was trying to protect himself, but apparently, based on the charges he was facing, it was smarter for him to go ahead and plead guilty because the charges were misdemeanors and would not include jail time. So overall, probably a great decision by Jalen Carter to go ahead and turn himself in and plead no contest. And another big story that's going on right now. This guy's been all over the news for doing silly stuff. They're talking about his dad is an Usher lookalike, having swag contests at the games. Ja Morant. So if you've been following, apparently they're talking about he got in a fight with a kid and pulled a gun on a kid. All types of crazy allegations, and it kind of came to a head when he posted a video in a strip club when where he had no shirt on, but he wasn't stripping. He was just there in the club, and he flashed a gun on IG Live. And obviously he took the video down, but it had already been recorded and it was all over the place. So a lot of people thought it wasn't a big deal, but it ended up being a big deal because the NBA has what's called a collective bargaining agreement. They redo it every 7 to 10 years or so, where the players and the owners and the NBA negotiate for what the player what the players conduct would have to be, how they're going to be paid, how much of the proceeds from the NBA they're going to be eligible for. So there's a section that talks about conduct, and players are not allowed to carry guns in team facilities or on team trips. So he was out of town when this happened. He's a player for Memphis, but this happened in Denver. So the only way for him to have gotten a gun there, or the most logical way for him to have gotten a gun there, would have been for him to have brought it on the team plane, because they fly private, so they're not on United and Delta like us. So he would have been able to easily get a gun on the team plane if he chose to, and so he was immediately suspended. And finally, yesterday, the NBA came down with a suspension. They suspended him for 8 games. They came to the conclusion that they couldn't really prove that he had a gun, that he had the gun himself. So they couldn't give him the maximum sentence for violating the rule, but they did still suspend him for 8 games. So he's already sat out for 5 games. So he's got 3 more games left. He's lost money. He had a sponsorship deal with Powerade, who is owned by Coca-Cola, and they've already gotten rid of that. So he's gonna lose some money. He's saying he learned from it. He's saying all the right things, which is good, but it's a lesson that comes a little too late. There's a lot of talk on social media about how a private school kid like him all of a sudden gets to the NBA and wants to be hard. So a lot of times you see the people who are trying to get out the hood, and then he's trying to get into the hood. So that's kind of what the talk on social media has been, and it's interesting to see. So I hope that for his sake, he's able to get it together. And he's only like 23 or 24 years old, one of the best players in the NBA, and he's got a bright future. So hopefully he could get it together, and maybe Memphis could win a championship one day. I doubt it, but you never know. So that there's that. And then we got a little bit of good news, if you even remember this dude. But there used to be this rapper, Hurricane Chris, back in the day. He had one song, "Hey Baby," and I didn't even know that he was charged, but he was apparently charged with a murder, and he was acquitted. He was found not guilty. So I'll share a little bit more about it. It's an interesting story. And so Louisiana jury acquitted Hurricane Chris for the 2020 death of a man who was shot in a gas station. They found that Hurricane Chris was not guilty of the murder or illegal possession of stolen things. He was indicted in October of 2020, and he went on trial. And after being found not guilty, he said he wanted to thank his attorneys at Washington and Wells law firm and his family for standing by him. So that was a statement to the Shade Room. And what's kind of cool is when I looked up his lawyers, it was 2 dope black lawyers who were able to help that brother to prove his innocence for that murder trial. So obviously condolences go out to the man who lost his life, but for Hurricane Chris, these brothers were able to do a good job for him, and I'm certainly going to add them to the list of people who I refer cases to in Louisiana if I ever see anyone is facing similar charges. So Washington and Wells, good law firm. Looks like they do a couple of different types of law. I did look him up. Only negative knock I saw was I believe that it was Alex Washington. Uh, y'all need to fix that, but it looks like Alex Washington is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, so we're not gonna hold that against him, you know. But everybody knows there's only one real fraternity, and that is Q Psi Phi, which I represent to the day that I die. And I love it. You love it. We love it. All right. But yeah, if you're in Louisiana, these brothers are definitely worth looking up. And I hope to connect with them as well. So I want to present that to you. And that's before we go into what's kind of the big topic for today. It's been in the news. Obviously, everybody knows today is the first day of March Madness, uh, NCAA basketball. So if you're a basketball fan, this is an exciting time of year every year. All of the teams are in a tournament where only one team could win. They are competing to be the national champion, and every year, everybody does their brackets. You pick the teams. Maybe you can win some money from in your office or with your family. But the number one overall seed in the tournament this year actually is the University of Alabama, who is not traditionally a basketball school. Obviously, we know them more for football, but this year they have a freshman. The kid is a freshman, and he's balling out of control. And his name is Brandon Miller. And Brandon Miller also got into the news, unfortunately, because one of his teammates and another gentleman were charged with a murder. And Brandon was being investigated for being a part of aiding and abetting them in the murder. Possibly they were looking to see if there was anything they could charge him with, but there wasn't. Very sad situation. There was a young lady visiting her cousin at the University of Alabama. After leaving a party, the young lady and her friends were approached by Brandon Miller's teammate and his friend, and somehow they ended up having an interaction that was not positive. Brandon wasn't even there at the time, but the other player, Darius Miles, who when I first heard the name, I was like, oh man, Darius Miles didn't even go to college. So he played in the NBA already. Did he go to college? And he's trying to get some more eligibility. I didn't really remember if you remember Darius Miles from back in the day. But no, it's another Darius Miles from Washington, D.C. area playing for University of Alabama. And he retrieved a gun from Brandon's car, gave it to his friend, and his friend ended up getting into a shootout with the boyfriend of the woman who got killed. Real crazy, convoluted story, but basically their paths just kept crossing over and over. They ended up in an area in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They have a strip where everybody hangs out on the weekends. You know how it is in a college town. And, the young lady got shot, and so did so did the shooter who killed her. He also got shot. So you got one side saying that, you know, the, that Michael Davis shot into the car that killed the young lady because they got shot at first. And then obviously on the other side, they're saying the opposite. And the police are saying that there's surveillance video that shows that Michael Davis, who was with Darius Miles, was the aggressor and that he shot first. So it's a really crazy story. It's a lot of stuff that you see. We've seen it time and time again. You watch First 48 and you see these kids, they end up in a room and they start talking. And first they're lying and the stories don't make sense. And then they keep talking. And then finally, the truth comes out. So if you're ever in a situation, Darius Miles' mother is a correctional officer in DC, back where he's from, and she told him what, in my opinion, is the wrong thing, to always cooperate with the police and tell them the truth. So if you're going to talk, sure, tell the truth. But when they say you have the right to remain silent, you should exercise that right every time. So you don't have to talk just because you can talk. You should always get a lawyer because, whether you did it or whether you didn't do it, it's a situation that you're not accustomed to being in. And they're trained to try to elicit confessions and to get people to talk about things that they normally wouldn't talk about and say things that they normally wouldn't say, even when they're not guilty. You can appear guilty. And when you look like how we look, a lot of times they want to make you guilty. So, initially they told his mother, "Oh, he's not a suspect. We think that he's, possibly a part of our investigation." And then they thought maybe he was maybe like an accessory to the murder, but not actually going to be able to be charged with the murder. But then, lo and behold, by the time she got to the police station and it all shook out, both Darius Miles and Michael Davis were both charged with first-degree capital murder, which in Alabama is enhanced when a shooting happens in a car. So I'll just kind of share that with you so I could kind of show you what it looks like, because I can show you better than I could tell you. So we got we've got Alabama Code, murder by or through deadly weapon used upon a victim inside a vehicle. So the defendant is charged with capital murder. The law states that the intentional murder of a person committed by or through the use of a deadly weapon while the victim is in a car is a capital murder. So just because of the fact that happened in a car, it takes it from being a murder to a capital murder. So what must the state show? The state, which is who always brings the lawsuit in a criminal case, it's the state versus the defendant. So they have to show that the person who was killed is dead, and that the defendant caused the death by the use of a deadly weapon, which in this case would be a gun, and that the deceased person was in a vehicle at the time, and that in committing the acts that caused the death, the defendant intended to kill the deceased person or another person. So in this case, even if he admitted it, Michael Davis would say he was not shooting at the woman that he killed. He would probably say he was shooting at the man who he had the interaction with, who was her boyfriend. But it doesn't matter that he didn't intend to kill the young lady, Jamia. The fact that he killed, that he was trying to kill Cedric Johnson, her boyfriend, would still check off all these boxes. So that's if the state can check off all these boxes, then those two young men will be found guilty of capital murder. And capital murder is punishable by life with no possibility of parole, which means you'll never go home until you'll never see the outside of the prison until, I guess never, but until you die. And worst case is the death penalty. So you can get lethal injection or whatever other ways they do the death penalty. So right now it's already kind of been talked about. So the defense for the two young men, they're saying that the reason why Michael shot the gun was because they were shot at first. So that's what it seems like their likely defense is going to be, at least for the shooter. I'm not sure what the other young man is going to say. Maybe he's going to say he didn't give him the gun. I think he already admitted to it, though. So it'll be hard to maybe get that statement taken back. I'm not sure. But they're going to probably say it was self-defense, which if they can prove it's self-defense, then the jury should not find them guilty. Or they're going to say that they were intoxicated at the time when this happened, and therefore it should not be a capital murder, but it should be a lesser charge, maybe a manslaughter, maybe a first-degree murder that's not capital murder, whatever the other charges in Alabama are that are less than capital murder. So that would be something that could possibly be done to save their lives, or to possibly give them hope for seeing, the outside of a jail or a prison, because they're 20 and 22 years old. So they're super young. And, at this point, it appears that their lives are probably over. So they both have lawyers. They don't have dope black lawyers like Hurricane Chris. So I don't know how it's going to play out for them, but I do hope that whatever happens, that they can get it, on the right track. Obviously, they were out in the streets carrying guns. Darius Miles' mom said that Darius carried a gun because he had been held up before, even stuck up before. And then Michael Davis's mom talked about a previous charge where he got charged with possession of having guns. And she said that he said that nobody fights with their hands anymore. Everybody shoots these days. So I don't know. I haven't been in a fight or a shootout in a really long time, so it's kind of hard for me to say. But either way, though, either way, I really hope that they can kind of get it together. Even if they never get out, there's still ways that you can, make an impact in jail. So I wish the best for those brothers. I wish the best for the families of the deceased. She had a 5-year-old son, and he's already kind of going through it. Her mom is going through it. Hope everybody gets grief counseling and is able to kind of become, become as whole as you can be after an incident like that. Obviously, the point for everybody else here is to try to learn something through the mistakes of others, because for the most part, everybody here seemed like they were, you know, from good families, knew right from wrong, in college, you know, striving to have a clothing line, doing something positive with their life. And just one second interaction with somebody. They didn't even know these people. Before they went out that night, neither one of these people knew each other. And it got so serious that, they were standing next to each other in the line in the club, never said a word. They're on video. They didn't even know, like, they literally did not know each other. But because I think Michael Davis might have tried to holler at the girl and the guy got mad and, words got said, feelings got involved, and people do things that are kind of crazy. So, stay vigilant, keep your head on a swivel, try not to let somebody take you to that place, because even though you're not there, they might be there. So even you might be trying to use these, and they like Michael Davis, like, don't nobody do that. All we do is this, and they gonna start shooting at you. So, you know, try to be grown about it. Don't do it. So, um, what else? What else? So yeah, so they're still in jail. There's no bond. The judge found that they wouldn't give them a bond. They ended up having a grand jury proceeding, which basically is when the prosecutor gets to present their case to a jury. And there's no defense lawyers usually in most jurisdictions, most states, most counties, most cities, whatever. The defense lawyers are not there, and if they are there, they can't say anything. And the prosecution gets to give the jury, for the grand jury, their case. And the grand jury makes a decision as to whether or not there should be a full-blown trial where someone's going to decide um, whether the defendants are guilty or not guilty. So in this case, the grand jury came back and said that they did believe there was enough evidence to move forward with the trial. And they're saying that they're going to charge both of these young men separately. So their trials are not going to be together. Obviously, in situations like this, there's always opportunities for one person to take a deal and maybe get a lesser sentence. In this case, the lesser sentence seems like it would be um, life with no parole versus them trying to get the death penalty. Maybe they can negotiate down to a manslaughter or something like that. I'm not sure. We saw that recently as well. I don't know if you've been following it. I didn't plan on talking about it, but the Triple X Tentacion case. They're actually they've been in the jury's been deliberating all this week, and they might have came back with the verdict today. And I just didn't hear about it yet. But let's see. So uh, I don't see where a verdict has been released, but Triple X did have an album come out today. So if you don't know the story, while he was shopping, he was in some type of automobile store, some type of store, and or on the way into the store rather, and he was driving. He had somebody in the passenger seat with him, and the people came up to him trying to rob him. They started shooting, and he got killed in the car. The other person in the car was able to get out and run away. Um, they were able to figure out who these people were pretty fast because they were flashing the money on social media the same night. And yeah, so they were flashing the money on social media, and they were able to be caught. So I'm telling the story to make the point. One of them took a deal. He got a lower sentence, and he testified against the rest. So it was actually a crazy trial. They tried to get accuse Drake of the crime. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit next time. But they tried to say that Drake possibly had something to do with it. Um, and they were going back and forth trying to see if they could get Drake to have to do a deposition. First, the judge said yes, and he said no, and finally they stuck to no. But same thing could happen here, and we shall see what's going to happen. But it's a very sad case. A lot of people are still upset. Brandon Miller, um, the the star player, he was found to have committed no wrongdoing, and he's he never really stopped playing. So he's been playing the whole time, and he's taking his team. They won the SEC tournament. Now they're number one seed in the NCAA's. So he's trying to win it all, and it's a crazy situation because he's only in college because the NBA won't let him play. You have to wait 1 year after high school before you're eligible for the NBA. If he was eligible for the NBA, he wouldn't even have been there, right? So he's got everybody on his side trying to help him out. But I mean, just being in that environment, you got to kind of be smart. It takes you back to Ja Morant situation, like when you're the one who is the one who's gonna get everybody else out the hood, get the money, and be able to do good for your family. Maybe you can't really be afforded the same opportunities for hanging out like everybody else. Maybe there's something to be learned by what we see with LeBron James. LeBron James' name don't be in no controversy. He's been in the NBA 20 years, and we don't know anything about LeBron James getting into trouble. We know more about his mom being at the club fighting when he used to play for the Heat than anything we ever heard about him. Mom, you was a little young, but you was still too old for that. You was tripping. But he's been married to the same black woman since forever. He dated her since high school, and they just doing their thing. Like his kids are now doing well. His son is a senior, about to go to college, or soon he'll be going to college. And LeBron's trying to stay in the NBA long enough to play with this Joker. So, I mean, that's really the way to be. That's the example for how to be. So a lot of guys grew up on the AI, but they really need to be trying to be more like LeBron. So, um, or really be like themselves, but try to stay out of trouble is basically my point, right? So I wish all these young brothers and even old brothers like Michael Irvin, because Michael Irvin, I mean, he's been chilling for a long time, but he's still from the crib. He still, you know, ends up in situations from time to time. So it's just like, don't. He said it. He said, this has me where I don't even feel comfortable interacting with people who I don't know like that, which is kind of like how people from Miami really are. But I guess that's how he's not from Miami. He's from South Florida because he up in there touching on these people, and he done got way too comfortable, being rich and being famous. So he all in the place touching on the white lady. I don't touch no white women. Okay, I don't do it. You can't do that. You don't know them, don't touch them. All right, because the whole Karen thing is real. Like it's not just something that people say for play. Like even I even seen it on Twitter yesterday. Like I saw a white guy, he was sending people after a Karen, like y'all need to go get them. So I applaud him for that. Like, so you can't be out here touching people, white, black, or anybody, but especially when you might be dealing with a Karen. So it's a whole nother level. Um, which segues me into the last story that I'm gonna talk about because you can't see my producer in the back, but she's losing it. She's like, "You was cool until you said that last thing." So I ain't gonna say it again, right? Um, uh, so yeah, so I'm gonna talk about this last story. Actually, I'm gonna talk about two things because this other thing, before I talk about the last thing, I want to kind of just um, talk about this guy. I got to look it up, but I do want to bring it to your attention because it really is important and it really is sad and great at the same time. But um, I'm really happy for this guy. Uh, let's see, what am I doing here? All these transitions are going to be more seamless in the future. I'm just kind of learning here. But this black man right here did 34 years for a crime he didn't commit, and he just got out of prison. He was sentenced to 400 years in 1989 for a crime they said he didn't do. So thanks to all types of new technology, right here you see they're talking about it. He was able to be, they were able to prove that he didn't do it. Luckily, Broward County has a progressive prosecutor. They have a division where they're trying to find crimes like this where people may actually have not done it. So they're working with groups like the Innocence Project and others to try to say, hey, maybe this didn't really happen. Right back then, we had junk science. A lot of times they were using things that weren't reliable as evidence, and now we have things that are better. Um, so they arrested him in 1988, accusing him of working with two armed robbers near the intersection of Northwest 6th Street and 27th Avenue in Broward County, which is now, ironically, where there is a African American Cultural Art Center. And, relying on eyewitnesses and people that don't really know, who knows what they told them, but like they could have said that, is it this guy right here? And they're like, yeah, that's the guy. Like, that's not how you're supposed to identify somebody in the lineup. But it's kind of sad. It's very sad. He lost family members. He hasn't had a chance to interact, but he's 57, and he's finally going home, or is home. And I wanted to kind of highlight that. His name, Sidney Holmes, and I also want to highlight that state attorney Harold Pryor, who I mentioned as being a progressive prosecutor, for doing his job, and the judge Edward Merrigan, who approved the release. So kudos to that brother. I wish him the best, and he's not too far from where I am. So if there's anything I could do to help him, I'm definitely willing to try. And now I want to get into the last story that I was telling you about. It's really stupid and ridiculous, but it's happening. Some white dude got expelled from Howard University's law school, and now he's suing, alleging racial discrimination. So, so Howard says that the student displayed a pattern of antagonizing actions against other students attending the law school. Um, the white dude, Michael Newman, uh, attended Howard, received a scholarship for $26,000, and was expelled about 2 years later. So he filed a lawsuit saying he suffered emotional and mental harm and seeks $2 million in damages after getting kicked out. So it's the result of a series of events, where he's making comments on a professor's forum page while wilding. He moved it to GroupMe, wilding. Uh, he was talking about how he disagrees with the black community, saying they believe the government solves problems, counters belief that he saw it only as causing problems. So he was going, running his mouth, you know, doing too much. And he could, compared himself uh, to white, saying he was like a black kid who attends a predominantly white school, saying he felt the disenfranchisement, yada yada yada. Um, and then back on social media, retweeting stuff, doing the most, and the case is set for a hearing next month. But it's wild though, I went to law school, and I can tell you that it's not an environment that is made for black people to feel comfortable. Um, but you just get through it. When placed in the opposite situation where he chose to be there, they offered him quite a bit of money, and probably was the best school that he got into. Howard is a really good school, maybe the only school. He chose to go there and act like a jerk, and now he wants to sue because he couldn't cut it. So we'll see what happens. Howard, I'm sure, has a strong legal team, and hopefully comes out on top in that situation. Another story that we'll continue to watch. But it's just a shame. That's all I can say. It's just a shame that uh, even at an HBCU, a white man goes out of his way to try to make Black people um, feel uncomfortable and wrong. So I wish him nothing but failure in his pursuit to sue Howard. Whatever happens in the rest of his life, that's between him and God. But um, I did want to highlight that because it was so stupid and ridiculous. Um, those are all the stories that I got to talk about today. Over time, there's going to be so much that we could talk about because there's so many things that I already know people don't know about or think they know about and are like either completely wrong or like off by this much, but this much can make a big difference. So we're going to bring on experts. We're going to bring on, people to ask questions. If you have questions, go ahead and, you know, put them in the comments and we'll make sure that they get addressed. And if you're looking for a lawyer, we'll put in the description how you can get in contact with us. This is the first of many episodes. I'm looking forward to being with you, getting better, doing better, and providing a platform for Black people to see Black excellence in the law, creating a movement where when you want to find a Black lawyer like Hurricane Chris did, you can do that, and you know that you have a lawyer who is understands you, doesn't look at you like a number, doesn't think that you're just somebody who they can collect some fees from, and actually is going to take the time to work your case for you as opposed to treating you like just a client. So we'll have more opportunities to highlight Black lawyers doing big things. And with that being said, I'm gonna close out and see you next time.